Mm. Okay, okay. Here we go. Back to our six-shot sequence. And what I've got going on here is I have been developing the shadow pass on this scene, and I've got a couple more things to be able to create within the shadow pass. I want to make sure that I do this thoroughly and check all the boxes at this stage before I move forward and on with the rest of the piece. But Man, I think tonight is the night. Tonight's the night to go in and start working on this church building. Um, Stuff that I've got left here. So on any of my brown furniture, I haven't gone through and put any of the shadows in there. So I'm going in and doing the shading on the kitchen, on the metal part within the foreground of this top left one. I'm going to go through and slow down and do the shading on the typewriter here. I've got some shading to do on the brown piece of furniture in this section, more on the typewriter, some of the glass, and start dropping down the opacity of the glass so that we can see behind it just a little bit. Typewriter within this scene. One of the other big things that I want to add some shading to is these tan doors right now. They're completely bright in one color, and just to make everything consistent, I want to add a little bit of shading to them down at the base. This is going to help it so that when the lighting starts to fall within our scene, I haven't done the lighting yet. We're getting really far without that. It's going to look really good. I've gone through and added a couple more details, so I finally put in the ceiling details within there, and I'm happy with the way that those have turned out. So I think that adds a lot to that room space. Let's see here. Yeah, I've got some more detailing to do over here on the other picture frame. So I also added my painting to the wall. So if you guys, I think a lot of folks, whenever you go through and do one of these 1940s, 50s environments, you end up adding wall art to it. It's so interesting when you look back at the history of 2D animated shows, Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, all that good stuff. The way that they actually handled the wall art and the stuff that they put on those wall spaces is always really, really interesting. They do modern abstract expressionism, and it's a chance for the artists who are, rendering these objects in these environments to go into full abstraction and do something really funky and unusual and a little bit outside of their normal routine. So that's exactly what I've done here. I'm working with the colors within my space, but trying to create a composition that is not drawing too much attention to itself. It's sitting on the wall comfortably. Um, but it still gives a little bit of texture within that space. So it's not shouting, and instead it's just still visually interesting, but gives our character still room to be able to act within the space without causing too much contrast within the rest of the room. So that's kind of my goal when I create these wall paintings, is just to make them abstracted and sort of interesting, but not overpowering to the rest of the shot. So right now I'm going through and working on the wood details and building that up slowly here. Should probably have an oven underneath this stove. That'd be a good idea to add in there. So interesting. This period of design seems like, it's the this is the time when America was super prosperous. We had our industrial revolution. Things were cheap, homes were cheap, and had a lot of innovation and design during this period. That was pretty fascinating. And it in a lot of ways becomes pretty timeless. With the exception maybe of the overabundance of of floral patterns and wall drapes on absolutely everything. And every tabletop had to have a dolly. I think that's the word for it. Those lace round things, dolly, and yeah, trying to give a little bit of interest or a little bit of an overhang down here just to show that there's something else going on with it. Probably need to have an oven front there. So, ay, ay, ay. Let's do it. If I don't do it now, I won't do it. All right, giving it a hole for the window in the oven real quick. My perspective line isn't exactly right there, so I need to fix that. There we go. Cool. So now that brown isn't looking quite as brown as it was before. Making that stuff drop back, especially that top left-hand side is starting to fade away, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. Let's not forget our chair legs back here, trying to be thorough on this. And since I'm working the browns, I'm going to do that on, there we go, all of my shots at the same time. So let's see here. Got some more brown to be able to work in, maybe on this coffee. Some more chair legs over here, but let's go in and let's do this piece of furniture next. That system of turning off the auto select with the selector, I hit V on the keyboard to get into the selector. And then from there, being able to go in, right click, and then get on my layer really fast helps a ton when you've got, I'm up to 267 layers, I think, within this shot. So starting off at 27% for this background shelf. And this is just a base layer to sort of help me get my lines right. There we go. And now I've got 3 more swipes at 28% before we reach 100%. To be able to build up my gradient more naturally. Excuse me. Here we go, here we go, here we go. 28. Just adding a little bit of shading right underneath each one of these lines. I know that I've got my highlights I can go in and put in here later on. And then as the light is dissipating, have it just dissipate a little bit over the top of this thing and not forget, yeah, that there's going to be some shading behind the picture frame. One other good thing that I can do is ground my picture frame here by giving it just a little bit of an underline. And let's not forget about the bottom of the legs. This one isn't going to catch nearly as much lighting. That's the other one. But yeah, that looks pretty accurate. Let's see if we can't go in here and add just a little bit more darkness on the back wall. There we go. And we'll give it a little bit more coming forward. That feels good to me. Big difference. Yeah, that's starting to blend in with the space really nicely now. Not forget about our chair legs over here. So I'm almost working each color. As I go through and do this. Going and completing all of the browns. I like the texture that's on the chair there. It's a little bit rough, but I'm going to leave it, which is fine because we're working in this style. So I've got most of my browns done. The stuff on the bottom scene, that's going to be mostly highlighted texture that I'm putting in there. Now I've got, gosh, I'm really avoiding the typewriter because I know I'm going to have to slow down on that quite a bit, but I think it'll be good to see what it looks like when I'm adding in those details. Now we've got the oven next. And on this scene, let's see here. So anything that is that color gets, we've got a really dark color here in the foreground, but I think we've got a secondary one somewhere in here that can work pretty well. Okay. So for the oven hood, I'll bring it down to 26, 27% again. There we go. And now let's start shading this thing. So this is just a first pass brush, just a fill. Wherever there's a corner or an edge, I know that I can a little bit darker. So for this, I want to create a gradient. It's moving out of there. Giving it just a little bit of rhythm within the shadows and trying to get some expressive brush work where I can. This guy, that's looking good. Got a lot of, oops, a lot of shadows that we can create or a gradient moving into the highlights on that thing. But for now, let's try that speckled brush that I haven't touched this week. So this is the textured spray. I'm going to use that just to be able to give it a little bit of noise so that it's not just the flat color. There we go. A little bit of gradient going on there. Looks good. So that's becoming a little bit fuzzier than I'd like for it to be, but and a little bit more texture showing up within this space. So let me try and use that clear and oops, that's on normal clear. See if we can't lessen 55%. Yeah, there it goes. Cool. So now we're dropping back some of those brush strokes that I put in there so they're not quite as visible. They'll still be there. Normal. And a little bit more of it in. So now they're starting to disappear. So it's got a little bit of texture that should look quite a bit stronger once we've actually got it highlighted. I think I can go darker with the color usage here on this side. Let's see what that looks like. I created a new layer. I'm just darkening up the at the backside where the light isn't going to hit this thing. I think with rim lighting, we can start to make that look quite a bit better. So yeah, that's dropping out of my shot in a really big way. That's what I want to happen. Now let's go in and let's satisfy the stovetop. So again, any corners are sort of my guiding light here for what I know I can shade. Just giving it a little bit of light texture, not too much. That's going to get some good highlights from the light in the windows. Feels good to me. See if there's anything else in here that really needs a pass with that. Nope, not so much. Okay, so we got the countertops to do next, as well as the fridge. Let's go ahead and get the fridge in there, and then we'll worry about those countertops. So with that particular color, our darker color looks like this. And let's select the fridge layer, create a new layer. I'm pulling my colors from my reference image down at the bottom, even though my reference image is not of the of an interior, I've still got enough color range in here or color relationship. So I know that this blue gets that particular shadow and sort of working my way through it like that. This green has a secondary green on it. The brown can go to the blue. The red can go to this dark sort of teal color. And I'm using the color system contained in here to apply it to all of my different objects. So I'm at 100%. Let's drop my bring my smoothing up to 25. Don't forget to turn your smoothing on for your brush. I'm at 46%. And let's go ahead and let's start shading this fridge. I'm not going to forget to make my cookie jar larger. Two, three. Not really a lot of light going to hit the top of this thing. And then let's just go in and see what we can do about creating a good looking gradient. So this is that part where got a nice flat surface here. Just trying a couple different things. Remember, we've got a reflection that we're going to be creating with it. That's starting to feel pretty good. I like it. So let me go in and turn my clear on. Just drop back some of those choices that I made just a little bit. There we go. Now we're starting to get a good, organic, well built up texture on this shot. There we go. That's feeling good. I like it. So now we've got it's a little bit dirty looking, but I think once we add the highlights, that'll probably work. Let's just clean it up with the spray. Still unclear, aren't I? Yep. Okay. All right. Cookie jar. Cool. That all's feeling pretty good to me. On the fridge, still got to do the highlights there. Anything else? Good. Next up, let's do this in base over on the left-hand side. And with the greens for the shading, I think we've got a little bit more shading going on here, but I think that's going to be more appropriate throughout the base. got the pattern for the vase over the top of it. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to save myself some time. Doesn't look half bad with the vase painted fully in like that to where we're only seeing a little bit of the pattern, but I'm still going to mess with the layer interpretation just to see if I can get something I like a little bit better. There we go. Now, just that quick by messing with the layer interpretation, we've got a little bit of shadow that's dropping in there. I still like having the pattern in it, so I'm going to leave that. Looks good to me. We've got these pillows to do in this other room. I'll get into those in a second. Yeah, the pot, I've been avoiding this guy because that also influences the cookie jar too. They're the same color. We're definitely going to need some rim lighting on the pot. To be able to make the back lip stand out more. Maybe I can go in and get away with, yeah, here we go. That'll work. Now, okay. And let's turn down the opacity on that. So it's not quite so dark. And now we're on to the cookie jar. One layer, working on top of both of the layers. The shading down the bottom. Now let's mess with the layer interpretation. See if we can't. There we go. That'll work for me. Cool. All right. Got those pillows to do. Also got this green plant here that I want to add a little bit more detail to. Um, there you go. It's a little bit more see-through. Let's do this guy next. So for the tan color, we don't really have a shadow color for that. Maybe this is a different color. Yeah, that's sort of a highlight. We'll do something even brighter for the highlights just to make it stand out. I think that gives a good indicator that this is glass. Yeah, let's try to change the colors. Use saturation. Pink. Eh, I kind of like the way it was before. All right, so let's leave that nice and light. Let's go in and let's do. Trying to keep in mind that I've got a highlight layer. I'm gonna add to this later on. There we go. That's kind of interesting, giving it a little bit of transparency. I like it. And leaving these lines completely opaque works pretty good. Nice. Cool. That'll satisfy that. Okay. What's next? Those pillows, man. The thing is, I keep avoiding these pillows right here because I don't know what I want to do with them. I'm being a chicken about them. Let's go in here. Let's say that the shadow to this pink is that blue and see what happens. So let's go to a new layer. Okay, it's doing something. Okay, cool. Using the burn tool just to be able to give them a little bit more placement. And now let's try with the layer interpretation. Okay, so that's them like a dirty gray color. That doesn't look good. With multiply on, I don't like that. Oop, brighter orange. It's okay. Blue's definitely making them drop back quite a bit. Definitely not red. Oh, okay. The purple on there isn't so bad. I kind of like that. Exclusion. And that's matching up with the red that's on the table. So I think it could be justified. I think we're gonna go with that. Just need to make sure that any of these other layers. Oh, that was me erasing a bunch of stuff. Okay, let's try that again. And we're gonna turn it on to normal this time. There we go. That'll work. Yeah, that makes that pillow drop back just enough, just the way that I wanted it to. Okay, got the countertops to do next. Haven't forgotten about those guys. It's going to feel weird if I don't render those. And I've got a back wall as well. Now that I've committed to adding the dots within the scene, if I don't do that, it's going to feel off. So we got this white kind of linoleum countertop. Yeah, let's try blue, see what happens. We were using blue on the walls as well, so let's see if we can't get away with it on the countertops. Remember, the corners are my best buddy. I always know that I can add some shading around there. If you're looking for a spot to get started with shading a room and you're not really too comfortable or don't know where to begin, start from the corners and work your way forward. It's going to help you a lot. Give that just a little bit of an edge there. And I think I can get away with the rest of this thing. These dots. Just a little bit. Okay, so that's starting to drop away. We'll highlight on the edge of the fridge. Let's turn that on and off just to be able to get an idea of what it looks like. Off, on. Big difference. Dropping it back there looks much better. Don't want to forget about the spatula. And so this is one of those reasons why it really helps to be methodical with the way that you're working through these particular shots. Otherwise, it starts to become a real bear to do this stuff. Okay, so we got that gray. We know that that gray has this shadow. Trying to use some type of design language here, so I'm not just making up different rules for each section, but instead there's some design language that's related to the color scheme that I'm working within. Stinking spatula. This one of those items in the room that just isn't that important to me, but it needs to be there or it won't look right. So let's give it just a little bit of shading, just a little bit of texture. There we go. Gosh, you know, if we want to be real fancy, we can go through and let's add those grounding lines to the spatula. It always helps. I'm telling you, when you ground this stuff and it actually looks like it's placed within the scene, you make enough of those little decisions and it makes all the difference in the world. So we got these bottles over here. I'm not going to forget about those guys. Got a nice dark green. Let's see if I can't combine those two layers since it's a minor object. New layer above. Let's mess with the layer interpretation. So a little bit of shading on those two guys is going to make a big difference. And then we've got one more wall before we get into those tan doors in the back. Don't want to forget about the coloring on the picture frame there. This tan wall. Blue. Mm. Just dropping back. Oops. Come on now. Line right there. We've got some highlight that we're going to be adding to that section for sure. I do love my green bricks here, but they need some type of shading over the top of them as well. So we got the darker green on clear. Let's go to normal. I don't do it, it'll look weird. Goes a little bit of extra color there. And pillows, check. Tile, check. Back wall, check. We got the typewriter that we're working our way to. I think we're in a good spot to do the, while we're at it, we're being crazy about this stuff. Let's add a rather not add a shading layer to him and instead just let the highlights do the work for me. I think he's dark enough already. Typewriter. Well, that's looking good. Yeah, I don't want to forget about this one. 41%. That'll work for me. Why I did the top on a different layer. And I'm not being overly detailed. I'm just doing shapes, and I want to give the impression here of some kind of cutout being extremely loose with the details that I'm doing on the wood inlay there. But if I don't do it, it'll look like it's missing something. So being loose, but still intentional with the shape language. Okay, there we are. Feels pretty good to me. Now we've got those back walls, or those doors to knock out next. This is the biggest door within my shot. So we got that tan, and again, say that it gets this color or some shading on it. I don't really like that. I think this is why I didn't want to do this. All right, so let's go in and let's do a spray. I can't see where my brush is at. There we go. Just giving it a little bit of texture. 'Cause that's going to catch a lot of the light here in a minute. Again, just shading these just a little bit towards the base. And maybe a little bit up here at the top so we can infer that there's some type of overhang that's going on. Be enough for me there. Oh gosh. I think my computer just said it's tired. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Those are all working pretty well. I am got to stop now and then reset my eyes, give myself a second before I go in and start working on the typewriter because it's just a little bit more detailed. And with any luck, after that, I'll still have some juice in me and I can start working on the cathedral. Finally, once I get my first shadow pass on the cathedral, then I can go through and start doing my highlight pass, and we'll be pretty close to on our way out of here for these 6 shots. The highlight pass is going to be cool. I think this is fun when you start to see how much all this stuff really starts to develop right when you've got the shadow pass done, and then adding those highlights and the rim lights really just make all of this stuff pop, and you get to direct the viewer's attention to where you want them to look a little bit more. But some interesting choices within this section. I think the countertop is one of the best examples of this, where it was working fine before, and it still reads as white visually to the viewer's eyes, right? It still comes across as being a light surface, but by adding that blue on there, it starts to make its visual importance not quite as strong. So you can see how if you let your eyes go a little bit blurry, it's super bright. It's really kind of acidic and drawing the viewer's eyes to it. And we're just sort of diluting it by adding that blue overlay, which is working with the rest of those blue shadows that I've put within my piece. And we are starting to get there. So Shadow Pass just about completed. Need to do the typewriter and then the church. And I'll go ahead and, since this is the Shadow Pass, start figuring out something to do with this blue column down in the bottom right-hand side for what the interior is going to look like. But yeah, it's getting there. So give me just a moment. Okay, okay. So when we are kind of stuck on something within a drawing, a lot of times it's because it's something we got to slow down on, think a little bit more about. And when we do that, the result is going to end up being worth it. So in this case, this church or the typewriter, man, I was avoiding them like the plague. Did not want to get started on them yet for whatever reason. And now that I'm finally jumping in there, I have a feeling that it's going to turn out pretty sweet. It's going to look pretty good once I'm actually done with these parts. So just got to jump in, start making some kind of decision with your art. Creative paralysis can often be cured by just making a line, and your brain will start to make the decisions along the way. So, a big thing for this is that I don't want to get overly detailed with the church background. I want it to still stay loose and tight, and not get. I'm not doing a realistic architectural rendering. This needs to stay stylized. And so, just like with the medieval piece, what I'm doing is I'm working my way through the details. I think you can hear the gaggle of Harry Potter kids that are downstairs still. They're not going anywhere. I thought that maybe they would sing some more songs or do something, but they're really just hanging out down there. I don't know what's up with that. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is same logic, right? Whenever I'm painting something I'm not entirely sure about, oftentimes starting with the shape blocking and then going into the shadow pass is going to be your best bet. So this is the area that I know I want rendered. I think on this cathedral type object that I can go through and start putting in some of the other colors in my scene. Do a round shape right there. I'm gonna give one more little layer of smaller lines here and there just to give it the impression of some more detail and architectural elements, even though I'm not really painting these too tight. I'm keeping it really, really loose. And I don't want to lose my handrail elements either. All right. Cool, cool, cool. That's a good start. Let's go in and let's oops, add some more stuff for that first shadow pass to each one of these layers. I'm creating a new layer. I'm up to 284 layers within this scene. Okay, back there. This is far too dark here, but I still want there to be just a little bit of reflection. So I'm going to go back first after I turn off my big layer, turn all this down. Okay, cool. So let me turn off my sketch layer now. Okay, so that all looks pretty good for me. These guys back here, turn down their opacity. So it's not pulling our attention too much, and it's just barely there out the window. That looks and feels good to me. Cool. So let me see if I can't start working in some of these purples and other colors that I've used in other areas of the shot, especially that purple right there. Now that I've got my base layer. If the battery's dying on my pen, so it's not quite as accurate as it was before. And making up some rules as I go along here. We've got some highlights that I'm going to be applying to this church cathedral shape object here in a minute as well. But I want to see if I can add any of there's any dark greens that are really appealing to me. Let's go in and integrate some of that purple. I'm going to turn down the opacity on it again. I'm not going to do it on the reflection. Let's do it on this one though. Okay, there we go. Ooh, that'll work well for me. And now when we zoom out, we can see that we're really starting to get some good architecture and details built up within this church without having to go in and be super tight with all of them. And that's exactly where I want to be with this object. So that's working well. We've got a lot of green built into the rest of the piece. So I feel like I could probably add a little bit of green in there also, but let's do that on top of the other layers. So I'm going to start with my big one again, grab it, and go up two. This one I'm going to use my texture spray. Just going into some of those big areas. It's a little messy as I start to get closer. It's all right for now. I think the pin lights, or sorry, the edge lights that I'm going to put on this thing will help it quite a bit. It's feeling strong to me. Yeah, that's what it needed, was a little bit of green on it. Okay, that feels good. Cool. Glad I got that out of the way. All right. Last thing here on the shadow pass before we call this a wrap. Got this mirror to start thinking about, as well as this piece right over here. So this guy, I haven't done anything with him yet. Same deal. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do or what it was going to look like. So let's just go in and try some stuff. I've been avoiding it. And I find that the parts that I'm avoiding within a lot of these shots and scenes, most of the time, once you actually just start painting and making some kind of decision, that the solution start to come to you. So once again, we can start to build in some of that green within the shot. I don't know. I'm just trying some stuff. I'm going to mute all this quite a bit here in a second. Just trying to pull in some of those colors from the rest of my space. And yeah, let's do a little bit of the top of the couch color. And now let's take that, and we've got this darker color here, which I think I can go over with the spray. Here we go. All right, super textural, not really well defined. The rest of the shot is pretty well defined, so I think that works well for the inside of it. And we'll do some more rim lights to not lose the handrail right there when I go in and start the highlight pass. But I can go through and do every little letter on the typewriter, but for this particular style, I don't think that's a detail that I really need to include. And I'm in a pretty good spot now to start my a big highlight pass and starting the rim lighting. So there's definitely some areas within this shot, like the back of the couch, the side of the couch, this the edge of this table that certainly needs the highlights on there. And I kind of feel like, all right, I'm going to save out a copy of this once we've got the shadow pass, just so that we can see what the highlights are going to start to look like. All right, export. Oh yeah, I forgot about the mirror. Darn. All right. Always one or two more things to do. All right, I don't really feel like doing this like Harmonious Bosch where he painted that mirror. Not Bosch. The dude who did the Renaissance couple that were like the traders. Okay, so maybe adding a little bit of that there. What do we have on the other side? So I think that's working okay. For the mirror, it's not too much. I'm going to add highlights over the top of it, but that spot definitely needed something within the scene. And I think that's carrying it pretty well. So yeah, got a lot of cool choices and options that I've left myself for the highlights within this shot to really make those come to life. But for now, let's go ahead and export. Whew, that was a lot. Cool. That feels good. And let's start. Okay, so now for the highlights. This is what I envisioned and was looking at previously for the highlights within this shot. So I really like the way that they become super geometric like this, and they've got some lines going over the top of them. I thought that was pretty cool. And the way that they're not afraid to get too bright with some of these highlights within the space. So I'm gonna see, let's just check these. This one and this one, the exact same color. That one, same color. This guy, a little darker, but they've got these yellow tones to them. So I'm gonna see if I can't do some highlights that are within the orange space that are pretty bright. So let's take that orange and try and mimic it to where we're going up to this upper left-hand side and building in some of those highlights and just see how that goes within the shot. Um, they've got them on a little bit of rough edges to them. Let's see what happens. Um, where are these going to be the most prominent? Kind of feel like I need to do this over top of the rest of the image because I can rim light it. I don't know. Okay, it's tricky sometimes. Once again, let's just start and see where this takes us. All right, so just exploring the shot right now to see what feels interesting for these highlights. Okay. This works. Ooh, that's cool. All right, I think we got it working. Nice. So it's giving me my nice sharp lines there. What I wanted. Okay. There we go. Cool. That feels good. Hmm. It's all working well. Oops. Come on now. Stop that. Ooh, softening up the edges on it just a little bit. And without it, there we go. All right, that's working pretty good. So that's one big light layer. Let's see how much more of this I can get away with. That's working good. Right. I don't always recommend doing the highlight layer totally over the top like this. In this case, it's working pretty well. Just to be able to brighten up everything within my shot. Oh. That's working pretty good for our first pass on the highlights. Kind of like it turned all the way up. I think that looks really nice with with the glare coming in through the window. But it's probably not what I'll end up using in the end. Quite cool with the blue light also. Yeah, overlay's definitely the way to go. Okay. Cool beans. So I think I'm going to stop here for the evening. I feel like I'm getting in a bit of a rush, and I've been painting for quite some time. Got a lot done, and there's likely still a lot of adjustments that need to happen with this lighting. Turning it down to 45% feels good to me. In some areas that I need to push it just a little bit further, but it's getting there. Yeah, so that I continue to build into the shot on and off. I'm excited to take the same approach and do the outside as well, where the light's actually hitting and get it on the church and do one big pass with the lighting like this, and then go in and start being more surgical with it as well. But yeah, you can see without the shadows, the scene is working, but or sorry, without the highlights. And now when we add the highlights, you can only see the shadows. We're starting to get more of that contrast and more of the focus, and those shadows that we've already established are just becoming deeper and darker to